Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another video. As you can see, today I have an entire desk full of mocs. All of them are in 1/21 scale. The right 3 mocs have instructions available on Rebrickable as well. The 2 on the left, I'm not sure if I'm gonna make instructions because they either include a bit of unconventional solutions that might not be as reliable, or I just don't really like the end result. Today let's go over all of them. On the right there are some of the older mocs, which is the wheel loader. It is the second mock I ever published on Rebrickable, and it still doesn't have a YouTube video of its own, so I finally thought it was time. So today is the day. Then the rock crusher next to that, the red one, that one has also been quite a while since I made the model. The orange one in the middle is a compactor. It has all the functions you expect and even some more. Of course the front and back wheels are driven together. So the power from these go through a drivetrain with a rubber band, a universal joint, and then to the back wheels, so it's all driven together. Then that drives a inline-4 fake engine in the back. Then the steering mechanism allows for a working steering wheel, which is something that appears quite often in my mocs compared to, regular sets. So that's one of the things I always try to include, just for realism. And this one is available on Rebrickable as a mock. I think it's a pretty cool model. It didn't take me that long to develop. I think it was like 2 or 3 days. So I think that's probably the most interesting parts of this mock. It's a pretty simple model. Still interesting to build, especially with the really limited orange pieces I had, because I believe this is like 95% of the orange pieces I have. So let's move on to the second one. This one I've been waiting on a YouTube video for a long time. I made it a while back. I don't even remember when. It was at least 1.5 years before I filmed this. It also has working steering and a working steering wheel, but I had to take out a rubber band because I needed it somewhere else. So right now the steering wheel doesn't work, but it should turn. It's based on a LH50 Volvo wheel loader. It's a pretty small wheel loader, but I think it's a really cool model for all the functions I managed to pack in. It has forks here. You can lower the entire front with these 2 gears. And then you can tilt the forks with the gear here in the middle. Another cool feature is that you can take out the forks and put them wherever you want, so they are basically adjustable, which I think is pretty cool, since you can now lift wider things by just pulling out these 2 pieces. Of course we have a pallet for it. It comes from some forklift sets I have, and I just stole the design because it's pretty nice and fits the scale okay-ish. And it's basically the design I use for all my mocs that involve pallets. So I think you can, if you go look at the compact excavator, I think it has the same pallet. And of course one of the next mocs we're gonna discuss also has the same pallet. You can even see it in the background here. I already showed it as steering, but it also has the fake engine that many of my models have. It's of course the green color that Volvo engines usually have. It's not that visible because the exhausts limits us from how much we can open the hood, but I think it's still a pretty cool feature to include. It's an inline 6 and driven by all 4 wheels. How it drives all 4 wheels? Well, now it drives 2 because, you know, differentials and stuff. But this one also has pendular suspension on the rear axle. This one also is available on Rebrickable. You will have to scroll quite a bit down, since it's one of my older mocs. It also has a brick built Volvo logo on the back, which I think is pretty cool, especially for this scale. This mock took me a bit longer than usual. First of all, because it was my first mock I was building. It's not the first I released, but it was the first which I was building and made instructions for. But then, when I finished the instructions, one of my good friends, who also was waiting for the instructions to buy them, noticed that the wheel loader was way too wide. It was like 17 studs wide. So that was something I completely overlooked. I just made up a standard axle without checking the width of the model, which is of course a beginner mistake, but it was my first mock with instructions. So after I did the instructions, he noticed that, and I was like, oh no, now I have to redo the entire thing. So basically what is left of the original mock, I think the back, the bumper and the grille are left. The hood is the same and the roof is the same. Then I changed all the axles, the entire inner structure, and I did end up changing a lot of the arm too, because this is very narrow to make a proper arm at the front. As you can see here, it takes the entire width and it is a bit flimsy, I have to admit, but it still does its job pretty well. If I press on the forks, it does bend, but that's normal since here it's just half a beam on each side, so that is to be expected. But I did include counterweights at the rear, so if you put the arm all the way up, then it can handle some pretty substantial weight. Now let's go on to the next one. This is a pretty unique model. It's not that unique to build a telehandler, but this one has a crazy lot of features. First of all, the forks can tilt and they can slide in and out. It uses the same pallet as the wheel loader, so it can go on there. Now let's look at our pneumatic function. There's only one pneumatic function because I didn't really see a way to use pneumatics in any of the other functions. Okay, so now if we use the pneumatic pump, we should see what our pneumatic feature is. I think you can already see is the lifting of the boom, which is the only feature that I think is obvious how you would use pneumatics. For any of the other features, I was thinking about pneumatics, but I didn't really see a proper way to do it. So now you might be thinking that's pretty cool, but that's not really the most unique feature, right? That's correct. I'm also not sure which is the most unique feature, but I'll just show you both. First of all, we have an arm, we have a boom that extends in 3 sections. If it wants to extend, of course. So this is why I don't release the mock when I don't feel it's ready. Everything is a bit dusty, so it might be a little bit less smooth than when I just built it. But still, this is pretty cool. It has a 3-piece boom that all extends by just rotating this one knob back here. I'll just help it out a bit by pushing here. So yeah, I don't think this one is getting instructions without a major redesign, because this isn't working too great. I think something somewhere is jamming a bit, which might be why it's not, you know, doing what it's supposed to do. When I just built it, I remember it working fine. So I don't know if it's just dust that got in there and just gave everything a little extra friction or something. Because this isn't how it used to be when I built it. But of course, that's also something you have to account for if you release mocs. If they are on a shelf for a little while, they still have to work afterwards. But still, that is a pretty impressive boom, if you ask me. Now let's move on to what I personally think is the coolest feature of them all. 4-wheel steering. That will be pretty easy to integrate if the model didn't also have 4-wheel drive and a fake engine, which is hidden under here. I believe it's an inline 4. Also pretty cool is that the differential is not in a frame, it's above the frame. It's just hanging between two CV joints between the wheel hubs. It's all very compact. I had to make some pretty unique structures around it just for it to just fit. Because the differential, this is just to keep it from moving sideways, but there's just an axle 2 studs long in the differential to the CV joint and then to the wheel hubs. The differential is basically sandwiched between the two wheel hubs. That's also pretty cool, which allowed me to achieve this very narrow axle, which normally wouldn't be possible. It does take a bit more to reinforce the axle, but it's a sacrifice you have to make. But then if you put the wheels back on, there's something else very unique in this scale, which most bigger telehandlers do have, but this one has 4-wheel steering, as I said before. Then, if you take out this piece, if we just put it here in the front, we've just disconnected the rear axle from the steering, which means we now have 2 steering modes already. But what if you want crab steering, like the real telehandlers? Well, you put it in the other position, all the way on the end here, and now we have crab steering. Pretty cool, isn't it? And all this in such a compact mock is why I won't be selling instructions for this one, because it's just too much stuff that can go wrong. You know, it might look good now, but for example, one thing that already went wrong is normally this, because it was stuck, just turned the small yellow thing over here, just turned. It was supposed to be like this, and it's what holds the steering when I put this piece in there, when it's centered like this. So every time you don't pay attention, something goes wrong, and this model wouldn't really work well long term. I don't feel like this is the quality you guys want.